You are now listening to the Be Your Own #LoveGoals podcast with Mo Ari
and Tiffany.
We just want you to remember that every person, regardless of identity, wants these three things: belonging, authenticity, and love.
And after a decade of partnership, we've learned to co-create these things and so much more.
So from wherever you're listening, we're going to go on a journey of becoming our own #LoveGoals. Now let's get into this episode. Hey, it's Mo Ari
and Tiffany.
And this is the Be Your Own Love Goals podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mo, I was having this conversation with a friend the other day, and she asked me this question that I'm still sitting with. She's was in a new relationship, navigating that point at which there's no longer a representative present, where you really start to get to know a person and things that bother them and all of these different things. And she asked me, she said, how do I know if I'm being a good partner?
Yeah.
What would it look like to be a good partner? Like, I have no idea. Like, I don't really have examples. I didn't necessarily grow up around healthy relationships. And I feel like I gave her an answer in the moment. And I'm also just sitting with what is that? Like, what does that look like? And then I was like, am I a good partner? Would my partner think I'm a good partner? It just really got me to thinking. And it seems like it really has you stumped.
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
What I think is standing out to me is that it's so hard to qualify that for another person. So I'm like, that's a hard question. I know what that means for me. So this might go into Be Your Own Love Goals. Like, what it means to be a good partner probably is different from person to person. But it really is this profound question. And I'm thinking about how none of us get a blueprint for what it means to be a good partner. And that's why she's asking. None of us probably know what it actually means to be a good partner, or it's not that we've ever been told that. We're all on this journey of trying to create that, figure that out. And I think that gets to the heart of like why we have this podcast. But I love that question. And it definitely stumped me just sitting here like, I guess none of us probably have a real answer to that's universal. And it's not like there is really a blueprint.
Right.
But we are trying to figure it all out together.
Right.
And
it feels like that question is so relative from person to person.
Yeah.
And it is so relative because we all have our own love goals, or that's what we're striving for. So what good could mean to me might look different than what good could mean to the next person. I do feel like it's important, though, whoever you're in relationship with, that you have a similar understanding of what good means, because then that can cause some rift.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking that there is this internal process of being a good partner. And then there's the external process of assessing whether or not your partner is a good partner. So what is the question that she asked you? Was it like, how do I know if I am a good partner? Yeah.
Or what does it mean to be a good partner? Even down to like, how often should I communicate? What's too much communicating? Am I smothering? Like a number of questions that we're getting at her as a person in relationship. How do I know that I am good as a partner?
And even as I'm hearing that, part of me wants to remove the word good. And just, how do I know I'm being a partner? Good is this kind of word. I'm going to repeat
it louder
this
for the people in the
We
back.
have so many of these moments in the podcast where I'm like, let's just repeat these things.
Yes.
Sometimes we need to hear these things more than once.
We do.
And me and Tiffany are on the same page. If we don't
Yes.
repeat it, we're not gonna commit it to memory. I want to
No.
commit this to memory for myself.
Yeah.
Remove the word good. Am I
Mm.
being a partner?
Yes.
So part of me wants to just take that step back and say, okay, what would it mean to be a partner?
Mm.
I don't think you could communicate too often, but how well you're communicating in that
Mhm.
context matters.
Mhm.
Is what you're communicating about productive? Is it,
Exactly.
uh, are you utilizing great communication skills?
Mhm. Mhm.
But when we remove that good, then it doesn't become about our value.
Ooh.
And I think for
Yeah.
women in particular,
Mhm.
people, and especially people assigned female at birth,
Yes.
these conversations around worthiness come up a lot,
Mhm. Mhm.
especially in relationship to another person and how we're
Yes.
being or not being in service to another person. So when you take
Exactly.
that good out of there, how am I
Mhm.
being a partner? You're now not in service to the other person.
Yeah.
You're in tandem with them.
Exactly.
I got
Exactly.
chills. I'm like, ooh,
I agree.
yeah.
That good as, like, a moral kind of piece to it where you start to, I feel like, personally judge yourself. It leads
And
to
it's
some
and you
self-judgment.
I'm getting that you've done that.
Oh, absolutely. In
Yeah,
the context of being a partner, being a mom, like anything that, you attach these kind of moral judgments, quote unquote, as
right.
being good or not good, or if
Yeah,
I do these things, it's good. If I do these things, it's not. And simply, are you a partner?
yeah.
Simply.
Are you a partner?
Mhm.
And then so if we assess the definition of partnership,
Mm.
you can more, what is it? More fairly and accurately
Yeah.
assess whether or not you're meeting the
Mhm.
criteria and the standards you've set.
Mhm.
What does it mean to be a partner?
Yeah.
I think we have a general definition
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
Being a good partner in a relationship involves a combination of qualities and actions that contribute to a healthy, loving, and mutually fulfilling partnership. And I think that particular definition can help be a baseline for what it
Mhm.
means to be a partner. So if I assess myself against this,
Mhm.
this is your practice. If you really want to know the answer to the question, am I being a partner?
Mm.
Are my qualities and actions contributing to a healthy, loving, and mutually fulfilling relationship?
Mhm.
And if you assess everything that you're
Mm.
doing up against that, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Then the question isn't, am I good enough?
Yeah.
And it's not, am I talking too much? You can
Right.
ask yourself, is my communication contributing to a healthy, loving, and mutually fulfilling
Mm.
relationship?
That's good.
Yes,
That's good.
communicating. Okay, I am a partner.
Mhm. That's an amazing reframe. I feel myself even now thinking about that and putting in, think using partner or using wife. Like I know sometimes I ask myself, like, am I being a good ex today, a good wife, a good, when I say ex, I mean like blank.
Yeah,
Um, and really sitting back and, like, I guess it almost feels like looking at it more broadly, or like really taking a step back and doing this exercise that you're saying with asking the question, like, am I a good partner? Am I doing things that, are going to healthily benefit the relationship?
yeah. Mm. I feel that so much because I know that I do this too.
Mhm.
And especially around being a good dad.
Mm.
Good. You see how I just quickly leaned into good dad, like, right?
Good dad.
Am I just being a dad? And then what does being a dad mean?
Mhm.
Does it mean protecting them, nurturing them, caring for,
Mhm.
like, and then if I assess myself against those standards,
Mhm.
then I know I will have completed
Yeah.
what I set out to complete.
Mhm.
But this qualification and the value judgments are all
Yes.
about our worthiness. And we can stop questioning our worthiness to
Mhm.
just be a partner. We can stop questioning our worthiness to be a mom or a dad.
Yes.
We
Yes.
are those
We
things.
are.
How are we going to rise to the standard that we set for those
Mhm.
identities?
Mm.
You are
Yes.
a partner.
Mhm.
You don't have to qualify it. How are you going to live into that role?
Yeah. That's the one.
So much of our qualifiers and our value judgments against it or the placing that value on it,
Mhm.
it kind of undermines our work to just live in that role in a way
Yeah.
that's fully embodied.
Right.
If
Right.
we're always in conversation with it, like questioning it, am I a good partner? It's almost like it prevents us from fully stepping into partnership
Mhm.
because we're kind of always digging our potatoes, so to speak, like, I think I'm doing it. We're never fully in the middle of it, just like getting it.
Mhm.
And the same thing with being a father. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm always, am I a good enough dad?
Mhm.
I'm in conversation with that all the time.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
And I'm kind of like never taking the training wheels off.
Mhm.
So it's at a point, the work is almost at this point, I would say the work is to shift from those value based judgments.
Mhm.
Something that I want to share
Mhm.
is that we have some tips here on being a good partner.
Yeah.
And so I just want to share a few of them before we go into our question that need answers.
Mhm.
So first, Tiffany already got to effective communication, so I'm not going to even go into that. Tiff, communication is her thing.
Communication. Just talk to me.
Yeah.
Let's just have some touch point and we good. Now ideally it's healthy and fruitful. But I feel like in the least if we communicate and then work towards building, healthy communication, nonviolent communication, we had a pretty decent foundation if we
Yes.
are just communicating.
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like respect is really, really important.
Mhm.
And that being like mutual respect, honoring someone's thoughts and feelings and opinions.
Mhm.
Trust is critical to a relationship.
Yep.
Empathy,
Mhm.
that compassion, that real putting yourself in another person's shoes.
Yes.
That's empathy.
Yes.
Quality time,
Mhm.
actually taking the time and making sure that it's abundant, that it actually gives
Mhm.
back to the relationship.
Mhm.
Independence,
Yes.
so not smothering one another,
No.
compromise. The list really goes on. Is there
Mhm.
anything, you know, any qualities from that list that we have prepared that you wanted to just take a moment to name before we
Mhm.
move on?
No, I think that's pretty substantial. I would say maybe another one for me is support. So
Yeah,
really, you know, being there. Sometimes it's just sitting there with another person. Sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's, saying I got you. So that
yeah,
support, it really matters personally for me in partnership.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Support is a big one for me.
Mhm.
I love empathy, nurturing, touch.
It's so many.
We're
Like,
gonna make sure that we, either add this to like a post,
yeah.
probably like a social media post where
Mhm.
we offer these tips around partnership,
Yeah.
or we'll try to add them to the show notes.
Mhm.
Um, if not, it'll be on our website
Yep.
for the episode. So we'll be able to offer you all this list. But I want
Mhm.
to move into our questions that need answers today. Um,
Mm.
so I got a question for you, Tiff.
All right.
You
Give it
might
to me.
already know the answer. I have been in a relationship with my partner for almost 4 years now,
Mm.
and things have been going pretty well overall. But I can't help but wonder whether I am doing enough and effectively communicating my desires and listening to theirs.
Mm.
I am constantly trying to be self aware and never want to be the person holding our relationship back. But I honestly don't have an idea of how to assess my behavior. How do you suggest I go about understanding ways I need to improve or if I have what it takes to be the best partner?
Mm. I feel like I've been at this crossroads before, and I think at the point where you're in a relationship for 4 years, you get to this phase where maybe you're like, "Are we at our highest potential? Am I at my highest potential or capacity in this
Mm,
relationship?" And I feel like for me, it
If
was
you're self-accountable.
if you're self if I mean, that's
And
key.
very self-aware.
If you're s I mean, that is very true. I would like to think that I am, and so for me, that felt like a natural kind of thing, to a certain extent. And so I think it was very important for me to one, understand the patterns of behavior in the relationship that were constantly happening that were not helpful to the relationship. So what arguments were continuing to happen? What were things that we were constantly disagreeing on or constantly having some level of struggle or difficulty with? And from that point, attempting to recognize the role that I played in those things happening or
Mhm.
the role I play in them continuing to happen.
Mhm.
Now, I don't have all the tools to always be able to get directly to the root. And so this is where I feel like support like therapy is very, very important
Mhm.
because I am able to say, hey, this argument, or I have been able to say to my own therapist, this thing keeps happening.
Yeah.
I think my role in this might be X. Can you help me explore that? Now, sometimes you might have friends in your life or other people who are able to work through those things with you. But I would say that's one way that I have assessed um, my own responsibility in relationship or my
Yeah.
own, like, I don't want to self-sabotage. So what is my role? So really identifying what my role is in these
Yeah.
things. Um and I would also say that it's important to, I think, just be vulnerable. I
Yeah.
think vulnerability and talking about your feelings or what's happening, or even just the fact that you are curious about this thing to your partner means a lot and it goes a
Mhm.
really long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to this person's question,
Mhm.
um, that they are always trying to be self-aware
Mhm.
and they don't want to be the person holding the relationship back. I just
Mhm.
want to affirm that you're not going to be holding your relationship back.
Mm-mm.
A relationship at the end of the day is at least with two people, could be with more. But in this context, like, you can't single-handedly hold the relationship back. So if you're noticing any challenges in communication, which I think you might be, which is why you're trying to like assess for yourself like what's going
Mhm.
on, that it seems like you might want to have like a collaborative moment of checking
Yeah.
in,
Mhm.
and really trying to explore what is coming up in the relationship and you all co-creating that.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing,
Yeah.
that, Tiffany, in response to that question.
Mhm.
And I think what you have here already for the love resource for today
Yeah.
is relevant, and um, I think it was a helpful tool that you shared with our friend when she
Mhm.
asked this question about
Mhm.
being a good partner. So I'll just
Mhm.
let you share that.
Yeah, I really just encouraged her to have the conversation with her partner at the time to really understand, what either of them needed or desired or wanted in this moment. And like you were saying, these check-ins can be really helpful in being able to get to the bottom of that. And some of
Right.
the rules of this check-in that we have created as a love resource here are to set aside a few minutes each day to check in with one another.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be super long. How are you? How was your day? What's your high? What's your low? Like, it can be very simple and a very intentional point of connection. Um, Asking, h- like I said, how you're feeling. I said that already. But when you do these check-ins, you are able to develop skills around active listening.
Yeah.
So really, really listening intently, not just hearing what they're saying. And I know this is a thing that we talk about often, Mo, and I know this is probably like something that therapists learn in therapy school. But really actively listening, and sometimes that's listening, but listening for things that they don't say as well.
Yeah. I mean, some people are too good at evaluating what people are not saying. I just am like so against that. That you have to
Yeah.
be a trained therapist or that's your gift to
Mhm.
really hear empathically beyond
Yeah.
what people are saying. So
Mhm.
you never want to skip what people are
Yeah.
saying for what they're not saying. I think you are really great at hearing what people are saying and what they're not saying and holding that.
You have to do both.
You have to do both, because I know a lot of people that will make up a lot of conclusions about what somebody is not saying and what that must mean. And I don't think that we should be practicing that.
Yes, and that's their not listening. I was talking about, you just have come up with your own idea of what you think they're feeling or meaning, and you go on with that.
And it's usually not toward the end of compassion.
It's not.
So what you're suggesting is that people, let's say you hear me saying, I've been really having a hard time. Actively listening and listening for what they're not saying would say, your response would be, I hear you saying you're having a hard time. And I've also heard you over time saying that your job has been stressful. How might your job be contributing to this? That's the therapy skill Tiffany is suggesting, where you synthesize kind of the information that you have heard from them in this moment, what you're sensing about what might be also going on, and then reflecting it back to them and asking. It's a big part of active listening is to make sure that you are deeply engaged and present to what is happening in the moment now, while still holding all this extra information.
And then I think also with this tool,
you can go ahead touch.
You can touch. Yes, I mean, it's lots of things you can do in these check-ins beyond logos. Like whatever feels good for you as a check-in is important. But also at the heart of it, it really builds a consistency of communication and ultimately connection. It allows for you to connect in a way that might seem so simple, but it can be so impactful. And I just really encourage it. And I would say daily. Sometimes people need it multiple times a day, and that's okay. Like, the more connection, the better, right?
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that? I wish I could see him for the people that's listening.
I was stuck on how she said multiple things can qualify as a check-in. I was like, ooh, a little sex could be
over there, like, what time we gonna connect after this recording?
Multiple times a day. So my mind was still just here.
I see what you did there, though. I see what you did
she
there.
was saying, I was filtering it through
you are, oh my God. So I think that this tool can be helpful to anyone. I think it was particularly helpful for our friend in that moment of really questioning whether she was a good partner or not. And like I mentioned earlier, it's important to be in a relationship with someone who shares the same definition. We're going to take away good partner, just partner. You know, we got to be on the same page about what partner means, because.
And my reframe, to throw it back for a second, is not to necessarily be with a partner that has the same definition outright, that you all have co-created that same definition.
That one. Exactly.
Because they might not come to you.
That's true.
With that same definition.
That
because
is very
of their
true.
Family of origin, what they saw.
Right.
So I just wanted to go ahead.
No, that's important to say, because we have so many different backgrounds and lived experiences. What you think is a partner and what I think is a partner coming to the table can look different, but that doesn't mean we can't work toward the same definition of what that means. And so, that co-creation is very, very important.
Yeah. No, I was just adding that because I know you already mean that, so I was adding that into what you were saying.
It's important to say it because, some people,
they're going to walk away and say they're supposed to come to the table with our definition.
And you can just be out there waiting for the rest of your life, because nobody is going to have the exact same definition of a thing as you. As much as we desire it, it could get very close, but exactly the same in the same way every single time, you're going to be hard pressed.
Yeah. And sometimes that's a good thing that it's not the same, because how many of us come into a relationship with unhealthy views around partnership? And even if it's not the whole picture that's unhealthy or unhelpful, parts of it might be unhealthy or unhelpful based on what we saw or what we didn't see.
Absolutely.
And so we don't want people to come in with the same exact definition, or else none of us grow and evolve. But I venture to guess that your idea of partnership is going to change once you begin co-creating because it'll become a blend of what's beautiful
Exactly.
from each of the people involved.
Exactly. And especially if we see one another as mirrors. If we see one another as mirrors, there's something about you and your lived experience that you're bringing to the table that is shining a light on something that I may need to work on or that I need to pay attention to. So that co-creation, I mean, I'm glad you said it's crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
Yeah. And I know we have to get to our truth or truth before we run out of time here. I want to ask you this question.
Yeah.
What, at the end of the day, how do you know you've been a partner? If you think about at nighttime, when you're about to close your eyes and you feel complete for the day and you're drifting off to sleep, how do you know you were a partner?
That is good. For me, I know that I've been a partner when I know that I have communicated in a way that feels respectful and compassionate.
Yeah.
And even if it didn't start out that way, that I was able to come back and say, you know what? I didn't approach that in the best way.
Yeah.
I'm like alter what I said, and that's more supportive and more compassionate. I think for me, it's also knowing that I connected with my partner in some way, whether that's like I hugged them, we had sex, we, spent quality time together, that I connected in some way, and that the sum of these things, I mean, it's so many other things, but at the heart of it, I feel proud of our ability to connect, be present to one another, and to just see each other. And every day doesn't always look the same. But when I can sit there and say, yes, we accomplished those things, it feels good. And I know I am very aware when I know that those things have not happened. And it doesn't always sit right with me. It does not always sit right with me. And so I really strive for that because something we vowed to each other in our wedding vows was to never go to bed angry. And I feel like if I get to the end of the day and it's something that happened or something I did that could potentially cause the other person to go to bed angry, I got to reevaluate like my behavior and my actions for that day.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your response today. So our question for today, for truth or truth, would you rather be in a situationship with the person you've been madly in love with for 10 years or be married at first sight? Would you rather be in a situationship with the person you've been madly in love with for 10 years or be married at first sight?
When we get these would you rathers, I be ready to ask so many qualifying questions and all of these things. My first instinct was to answer this question with the situationship with the person I'm madly in love with.
Yeah.
I cannot fathom any sort of arrangement or commitment, situationship, marriage, whatever, without love.
Yeah.
Now, love can be created over time, but if I am madly in love with the person
Love
and
can also happen at first sight.
it can. If I'm madly in love with someone and it's a situationship, I'm gonna go with the situationship for teen. That with the person I'm madly in love with, I think.
Yeah. Now, this is I would say my response, the caveat, is that there's no judgment for anybody who is marrying at first sight or is an arranged marriage or any, relationship where that is how they are customarily making a union because, there are so many cultures that we want to honor and represent that we are acknowledging that we have a different worldview, a different cultural perspective where that's just not the practice. So we get to choose. And so we have this particular question. And I think for me, I would rather be in a situationship for 10 years with the person that I'm madly in love with, because the marriage doesn't make the union.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
I would rather be in a relationship with a person for 10 years that I am madly in love with, instead of getting married at first sight, because the marriage is not what makes the relationship.
Period.
The love is what makes that relationship. So whether we get married or we don't get married, we've got love.
Mad love.
Mad love. We don't even have to keep going. That is just
drops
beautiful.
The mic.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Seriously. Yeah. And when we think about what makes a good partnership over time, love is certainly a beautiful quality to have as part of that relationship. And when we think about what makes the foundation for partnership, we think about co-creation, collaboration, togetherness, consistency over time, the ability to evolve together. When I think about partnership, I think about those things. What are some words that you associate with partnership over time?
Commitment. Fun. Adventure. Yeah. I feel like, adventure would probably be number one, because over time, life happens. Yeah. Lifes, and there's ups and downs and all types of things. So it's like the adventure of all of that. And just being committed to one another. Yeah.
So commitment, a bunch of things in the middle, adventure, commitment.
Yeah. Because it feels like an adventure. It really does. And so being with a person who can see you, support you, recognize you through every iteration of yourself in that relationship, through that adventure, feels very, very important to me. Yeah. And it's like top 5, one of the reasons why I love you, and so grateful to have you in partnership, because the last 10 plus years have been an adventure, to say the least. Yeah. And to have your support and your love, and still a lot of fun in that. That feels like a blessing.
So much of a blessing. Yes. Now I'm a big part of why it's been an adventure.
I wasn't gonna say that, okay?
You all, this has been Be Your Own Love Goals with Mo Ari
and Tiffany.
Thank you all so much for joining us. You have a great day and be well.
Bye. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Video episodes are on YouTube and Spotify.
If you want your question included in an upcoming episode, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Be Your Own Love Goals, or check out our website at lovegoalspodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Bye.